Good morning, my friends. Happy weekend to all of you. Friends, there's amazing news. $1,000 are going out to millions of Americans, including low-income, Social Security, SSI, SSDI, and RRB beneficiaries. In this video, I'll be sharing with you everything that you need to know right now. I know, friends, that many of you have so many questions on when the next round of stimulus checks will be, especially with the ongoing crisis, skyrocketing inflation, and rising unemployment rates. There are several huge announcements this week from the Biden administration, Democrats, and Republicans. A lot of action is being taken by Congress, which is so awesome, and more money will finally begin being sent out to the American people. Please make sure you watch until the end of this video because I will be sharing with you all of the confirmed details on the fourth stimulus check. I will also be giving away 4 $75 Walmart gift cards every week to say thank you for watching. Please enter the giveaways by clicking and liking several of my videos and commenting below the keyword of each video that you watch. The more videos that you comment on, the greater your chances of winning these giveaways.
To occur here at a rate above 8%, a 40-year high. Even more alarmingly, the Department of Labor says that core inflation has increased in August over the month of July, and that real wages have declined 3.4% on an annualized basis. What that means is that my constituents cannot buy the same quantity of the things that they need this year as they could last year, even if they got a raise for the labor that they produce. Madam Speaker, I hear every single day from constituents who are desperate because of the results of this inflation. And imagine my embarrassment when I have to tell them that this inflation was caused by the actions of their own federal government. Economists have already answered the question of why we're experiencing this inflation. It's a combination of several things. As our economy emerges from the pandemic, there's been an increased demand for goods and services and a constrained supply chain which restricts our ability to respond to that increased demand. And economists will say that will make prices go up. But the other thing that has occurred is that this federal government has dumped almost $5 trillion of excess government spending into our economy over the last 18 months. $5 trillion. To give you an idea of how big that number is in context, normally our federal government only spends about $5 trillion in a given year. So we are increasing government spending by a rate of almost double that of the normal rate. And Madam Speaker, when that occurs, you put even more pressure.
Friends, here is the exciting news. About 23 million California residents will receive inflation relief checks of up to $1,050 after California Governor Gavin Newsom signed a $308 billion state budget that includes these payments. In a new statement, Governor Newsom said the checks are part of a $17 billion relief package that will also suspend the state sales tax on diesel fuel and provide additional aid to help people with rent and utility bills. The inflation relief checks are tax refunds that will send a total of $9.5 billion back to state residents. The agreement comes as California drivers face the highest gasoline prices in the U.S. Earlier this year, Governor Newsom had proposed sending stimulus checks of $400 per vehicle to state residents with a cap of 2 vehicles. But other lawmakers had pushed for a plan that would provide bigger checks to people who earn less. Newsom also told reporters, in the face of new challenges and uncertainties, we're providing over $17 billion in relief to help families make ends meet. California residents can see how much they qualify for by using this middle-class tax refund calculator. While these payments will undoubtedly take the edge off of higher costs at the pump, they also raise questions about the impact of putting more cash into the economy at a time when inflation is running at a 40-year high. Economists credit the combination of government stimulus spending, like direct payments to families and loans to businesses, and also supply chain problems as a contributing factors to the current inflation crisis. The checks are designed as tax refunds and stem from the state's record-setting $97 billion budget surplus. The payments are similar to the stimulus checks that were sent out by our federal government in that they are based on income, tax filing status, and household size. Lower and middle income Californians stand to receive the biggest checks. Single taxpayers who earn less than $75,000 a year and couples who file jointly and make less than $150,000 a year will receive $350 per taxpayer. Then the taxpayers with dependents will receive an additional $350. So friends, this is great news to those of you who reside in California. Friends, the key word for this video is Echo Lake. If you would like to enter today's Walmart gift card giveaway, which is worth $75, please click and like several of my videos, and then comment below this keyword, which is Echo Lake, and additional keywords of any video of mine that you watch. And do make sure, friends, that you are subscribed to my channel. Several other states have been sending out these kind of payments to in-need residents. One state to do so is Delaware, where a one-off $300 check is being sent out this year. The plan, known as the 2022 Delaware Relief Rebate Program, was passed and signed into law by Delaware Governor John Carney. The idea is for a one-off $300 check to be sent out to anyone who filed a 2020 tax return in the state, with this money to be expected to hit letterboxes by the end of this month. Governor Carney said in a statement, "This relief is intended to help Delawareans facing higher prices at the grocery store and gas pump. The state of Delaware is working hard to issue the $300 one-time rebate checks to all qualifying taxpayers. The check is available for all of those who pay taxes in the state in 2020 and who continue to live in Delaware. It is not just for low-income or medium-income families, as the amount is the same for all." So friends, this payment will be made to each taxpayer, including those who jointly filed, and taxpayers do not have to take any additional action to receive the $300 check. So the arrival of these checks will be a nice surprise for many Americans. Well, my amazing and beautiful friends, that is the end of my daily stimulus update video for today. Thank you so much, friends, for joining me here this Saturday. I greatly appreciate all of you who are watching my videos every single time I post. Remember, friends, I'll be announcing a winner for the $75 Walmart gift card in a video later today. So please enter the keywords in the comment section below and do stay tuned for that video. Thank you, my friends, and have a wonderful and blessed weekend.
On goods and services, and that causes prices to increase further. Earlier this year, the San Francisco branch of the Federal Reserve Bank wondered why inflation was so much worse here in the United States than that experienced by other countries, particularly in Europe. So they did a study, and several months ago, they released the results of this study. And their findings were stark. They said that deficit government spending is at the root cause of why inflation is so much worse here in the United States than it is in other countries. Madam Speaker, when the actions of government result in people paying more, that's called a tax. And inflation in the United States represents an unseen tax paid by every single American family. And unfortunately, this is a tax that is borne disproportionately by those who can least afford to pay it, the impoverished and the working poor in this country. But I have an even deeper concern this evening, Madam Speaker. Several weeks ago, the Congressional Budget Office released their long-term fiscal forecast, in which they analyze the finances of the United States over the next 30 years. They do this every year, and Congress, frankly, never pays attention. Well, Madam Speaker, Congress and the American people need to start paying attention to what the CBO has to say. The CBO says that our current national debt stands at over $30 trillion. If you do the math, that is over $90,000 for every single American man, woman, and child. Over $90,000 each. And that's today. The CBO says that right now our federal government runs a deficit of about 30% of all federal spending. That represents about 4% of our gross domestic product. But at the end of the forecast period, the CBO says that our deficit will nearly triple to 11% of our GDP. At that time, just paying interest on the national debt will eclipse all of our federal spending on Social Security. It will eclipse all of our federal spending on Medicare. In fact, it will become the single largest expenditure of federal government, requiring over half of all federal tax revenue to pay. Over half. And that's under the current fiscal conditions. Ironically, the Federal Reserve Bank is being forced to raise interest rates as a result of the inflation that this federal government has caused. Every time the Fed takes the action that they are likely to take this week in raising the discount rate by 3/4 of a point, it increases the cost of our interest payments on our national debt by $180 billion a year, which makes the problem even worse. In fact, the CBO says that if the Federal Reserve is forced to raise interest rates by 3 percentage points, and we know that they've already gotten about halfway there, that by the end of their forecast period, just paying interest on the national debt will consume over 100% of federal tax revenues. In other words, Madam Speaker, we won't even have enough money to pay the interest on the debt that we have rung up. That is unacceptable. This should be something that everyone in this chamber is talking about. Because what the CBO says is that sometime in the next 30 years, there will come a day of reckoning. And the sooner it comes, the less painful it will be. It will be painful no matter what we do. But if we wait, it will be extremely painful. Madam Speaker, we must get our fiscal house in order. And the only way to solve this problem is to reduce our habit of deficit spending. Now, I know my colleagues on the other side of the aisle like to say this is an easily solved problem. The problem is that we don't tax Americans enough. Well, the CBO had an answer to that too. They said that over the next 30 years in their forecast period, average federal tax revenues will be over 18%. That is that is a substantial increase over the current federal tax revenue over the last 50 years. In other words, Madam Speaker, what we have is not a revenue problem, we have a spending problem. And the only way we can get this problem under control is to reduce our federal spending and control our deficit. Madam Speaker, almost every year in this chamber, multiple bills are introduced attempting to impose a balanced budget requirement, sometimes within our House rules, sometimes within our federal Constitution. I myself introduced a balanced budget amendment last year in this chamber. We try to do it in a responsible way that won't disrupt the economy. We do it over a 5-year phase-in period. We allow for periods of fiscal emergency to be declared in which the President, with the concurrence of Congress, can override the requirement that the federal budget be balanced in times of warfare or in times of economic crisis. But, Madam Speaker, we must pay attention to this problem. We must balance our federal budget. If we do not, not only us, but our children will pay the terrible consequence. I yield back.